Hi, my name is Jem, and I genuinely wish I was taking the piss with this hairstyle. I haven't washed my hair in about 3 days, which is why it looks like a rat's nest. But that's not what you clicked on the video for. This year, I read not very many books. I think I read like 20 books. So I didn't want to film a top 17 books of 2017 because I barely read 17 books. But I do have a few favourites of the year, and I do have some books that I didn't like this year. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm going to alternate between books I didn't like and books that I did like that are on the same kind of level as each other, and then they are kind of in ascending order of like books that I feel about, and then books I feel really passionately about. So the first book in the books that I didn't like pile is one that I don't physically own. I borrowed it from a friend. It is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I had really high hopes going into this book, which is, you know, my fault. The book doesn't really deserve to have that kind of scrutiny placed on it that a lot of hype books get. The reason why this is on this list is because I felt like it didn't deliver. I haven't seen the TV show yet. I kind of do want to get to it still though, but I don't know, I felt really disappointed by this book and I felt robbed. I felt like the second half of the book completely undid the work of the first half. For those who don't know, Handmaid's Tale is about a society where most women have been rendered infertile, and so men take wives, but they also take handmaids to deliver babies. So it's a very oppressive regime, and our main character feels as though she wants to rebel because she lost her biological daughter to the regime. So the first half is her subtle rebellion, which I really liked. I really liked watching her kind of internal struggle and her dealing with the loss of her husband and her daughter, meanwhile trying to fit into a regime that literally doesn't want to bar her. I really loved the exploration of that, but the second half was just kind of a forced love story that I feel like undermined all the troubles that she went through in the first half. I don't know. It was just really disappointing, and not a bad book, just something I was disappointed by. The next book is one of the better books of the year. I actually read this in January, and so it stuck with me the whole entire year, and I actually really want to reread it soon. It's The Icemen by Philip Carlo. This is the only non-fiction book of the year that I read, I think. Oh no, I read a couple of history books, but it was one of the very few. And it was so good. It details the life of something Kuklinski. Richard Kuklinski, who was a mafia contract killer, but he didn't have an affiliation to any family because he was Polish. So he just kind of killed everyone and anyone who would pay. And Carlo did such a phenomenal job of capturing the life and the history of Kuklinski without forming unnecessary biases. Obviously this man is a terrible person. I'm talking about Kuklinski, not Philip Carlo. Obviously he is a murderer, he is a wife and domestic abuser, but he did a phenomenal job of painting this picture of Kuklinski's life without forcing the reader to hate him. It was just really well written. You could tell Philip Carlo paid incredible detail to every single aspect of Kuklinski's life. And I think if you're into crime novels, or even if you're not, just consider picking this up, because I had never read a crime novel before this one. And I'm so glad I did, because Philip Carlo is a genius when it comes to writing crime. The next one is a little bit controversial, and I've talked about it before, I think. And I was going to make a video but decided against it because I feel so uneasy about it, and it's Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur, or Kaur, or how do you pronounce her last name? Yeah, I did not really like this book, this collection of poetry. I don't really like poetry anyway, which is probably where I first went wrong, but I feel as though her poems didn't really connect with me, and I've been through a lot of things similar to what she's been through. And I don't know, I felt like she was saying you have to heal, you have to be positive, and a bunch of kind of things that I didn't agree with. I felt like she was very kind of isolated in her approach to healing, and I felt like her poems were a little bit soapboxy, which I know is very controversial to say and borderline like rude. I feel very rude saying that. I do want to say that if you found any type of healing or enjoyment through this book, I'm not directly attacking that view. I'm glad that this found somebody who it helped. But for me, I just feel like it was very soapboxy and it wasn't great prose. I did like a couple. I did bookmark a couple that I liked. But I don't know, I felt like this was really overhyped for me, and I haven't read her new poetry collection, but I think I still will, just to see if she's grown as someone who writes prose. I felt like this was very purple prose and not enough just genuine, stripped back, honest prose. The next book on my good kind of area is another one that I read at the start of the year and absolutely loved and enjoyed so much. It's Gemini by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the second book in the Illuminate file, so I won't get too much into it about what it's about, but I loved it. I thought this was a phenomenal sequel, probably not as good. Like, Illuminate is like, in my mind, an 85% and this is maybe an 82%. I just thought this was such a worthwhile sequel and completely transformed the way I viewed the world. And it doesn't follow the same characters, it follows Hannah and Nick. And the plot twist at the end was just like crazy. I was just like shaking in my seat. I think I read this in like 2 sittings and it's quite a sizey book. I just thought it was so cool, and I love Amy Kaufman. I've followed her since like her very beginnings, and I met her and she's so lovely, and it just proves that good things can come out of Australia. The next one on my shelf is another one that I don't own, but it is The Reluctant Fundamentalist by Mohsin Hamid. I did not like this book. I had to study it for school, and that's probably partly to blame because school takes the fun out of everything, but I just didn't like this book. It is about a man called Changaz. It's about a man called Changaz who is Pakistani, and he moves to America pre 9/11. And he's kind of in search of the American dream, and then 9/11 happens, and it's about he's kind of coming to terms with the fact that he's no longer wanted by American dream standards. And it deals with racism, it deals with kind of prejudice and the American dream, obviously. It was a worthwhile read, but I just did not like it. There were some quotes in it that I had a really big issue with, and I don't know, like there was one bit where he like smiled about 9/11 or something because America was brought to its knees. I just hated some bits that were supposed to illustrate the kind of animosity he feels towards America turning his back on him. They're back on him, but the delivery was kind of sketchy, and I don't know, I just didn't like this book much at all. And I had to study for school, which takes the fun out of everything. The next book is another sequel. This is the 3rd out of 3rd book, and I've talked about it before. I love this series so much. It's American Monsters by Derek Landy. This is the 3rd book in the Demon Road trilogy. Oh my fucking god. This series rotted me for all it's worth. The ending, I literally shed tears. Like, I'm going bleary-eyed thinking about it. One of my favourite characters died. It's fine. But this is so good. Demon Road follows Amber, who is this 16-year-old girl who's really struggling with her identity, her sexuality, and she goes home, she's like overweight, she doesn't really feel beautiful at all, so she goes home to these beautiful parents. They're beautiful, athletic, loved by the community. They're just like the stars of the show, of every show. So she goes home on her 16th birthday, and her parents try and eat her because, unbeknownst to her, she's a demon, they're a demon. In order to kind of cultivate their powers, they have to eat their children. It is so good. She teams up with this guy called Milo and they traverse around the Demon Road trying to outrun her parents and save her life. It is so good. This was a perfect conclusion. I love the love story. If you want an LGBT love story that is just so personal and heartwarming, I really cannot recommend this series enough. It's so good. I'm like giddy thinking about it. It's so good and I definitely want to reread it soon. And Derek Lander, you tweeted me once and I haven't been the same since. The next book on my shelf is one that I have talked about before and one that I'm going to film a video about. Not necessarily about, but like where it kind of takes the show. It's A Little Paris Bookshop by Nina George. I read this when it first came out. I want to say I was about 12. I frothed this book. I love it so much. It's about a man called Jean Perdue who is kind of grieving after the loss of a woman he loved who left him like 20 years ago. And one day he's like, fuck it. And he detaches his moat, which is also a bookstore, and he just fucking sails off into the distance. First time I read it, I was like, oh my god, I love this. Since then, I've read quite a few love stories. I've read quite a few stories about grief and kind of coming to terms with the other half disappearing. This is not a good book, and the video that I want to kind of film about it is why you shouldn't reread your favourite books, because I reread this and I hated it. I thought Jean Perdue was an absolute hideous narrator. I thought he was sexist at sometimes. He didn't care about the people around him who genuinely cared about him. The only person I did like was Max. He was a total bae. I thought Manon, which is the girl who disappeared on him, I thought she was fucking annoying. I was like, shut the fuck up. She wants the cake and wants to eat it too. Like, it was just so annoying, and I literally like feel so angered by this book because I wanted to love it again, but I just couldn't. And it's such a cool idea. Jean Perdue has the kind of power. It's not magical realism or anything, but he has the kind of power to prescribe the exact book that somebody needs. And it's such a cool idea, and I just felt like it fell short on every single element, and I'm so disappointed by it. Coming in at my second favourite book of the year, this is no surprise to anybody who's ever watched one of my videos, but it's a Hemingway book. This is Old Man and the Sea. I love Hemingway, easily my favoritist author of all time. I can't even talk, that's how much I love Hemingway. I just think in terms of writing, he's unparalleled. His tight constraint of language, it completely knocks it out of the water. I made a few of my friends read this and they didn't like it because nothing happened. But the way that, which is kind of true, it's just about a man on a boat who is trying to reel in a fish too big for him. Nothing truly happens. But the reason I love this is I read books, I want to say 80% for the writing style. Hemingway always delivers on prose, which for me is just like amazing. Every time I read his books, I am blown away with the constraint of language and the stylistic glitches which actually make it what it is. And I absolutely froth this book. If you've never read Hemingway and are slightly put off by the fact that nothing happens, I recommend reading A Farewell to Arms, which is one of my favourite books of all time. As you can see, it's absolutely beaten to death. A lot happens in this book. A lot of iconic quotes are in that book from Hemingway. But yeah, this was my second favourite book of the year. I just absolutely adored it, and I think Hemingway is just in a league of his own. I froth this book. The last book, the one that I hated the very most, that warranted its own 25-minute video. The School for Good and Evil by Salman Shanani. Oh my fucking god! If you want to see in depth what I think about this book, go watch my review on it. It's really bad and I just swear the whole time. But I fucking hated this book. It had unparalleled slut shaming, queer baiting. It was just not good. It had such a great opportunity to take tropes, to take elements of fiction that we don't realise are problematic. It had such an opportunity to really play with the idea of what it means to be beautiful, and it fucking ruined it. Basically, it's about two schools where two girls from every village are taken, or two children from every village are taken every so often to go to, one goes to the school for evil, one goes to the school for good, and they try and like get their own fairy tale. It was so fucking bad. The characters were so queer-baited. At the end, I was like, so did they get together or not? I will not be picking up the second one, even though I'm so angry at this and I want to see where it goes. I refuse to spend money on these books because I cannot stand the absolutely abhorrent slut shaming. This book had such an opportunity to kind of take what it means to be beautiful, or surface level beautiful, and play with it, but it just missed so many marks that I literally can't even give it 1 star. This book angers me to no avail. Changing gears, this is my absolute favourite book of the year. I've talked about it, I've raved about it. Surprisingly, I haven't filmed a video about it, but I love this book with everything in me. It's All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I love this book so much that I bookmarked the pages, which I rarely ever do. But oh my fucking god, I love this book so much. This is like 1,000,000 out of 5 stars to me. This is the gold standard for books. I have not been able to look at a single book or a single piece of literature the same ever since reading this book. Basically, it kind of has a varied patchwork timeline, but it follows Marie Law and Werner. So Marie Law is predominantly a 16-year-old girl. That's when the main events of the narrative happen. She's a 16-year-old girl who is French, and she goes blind in the lead up to the war, and then the war happens, so it's about her kind of navigating that landscape, not being able to see. Her language and the way she dictates emotions is just, oh my god, it's amazing. She, you know, talks about kind of her father being blue but red when he cooks. The line that really sticks with me the most out of her narrative is she's describing eating peaches as eating wedges of wet sunlight. Oh my god, I just feel so connected to her narrative. And then the second perspective is Werner, and he's the perfect German iron boy. He has blonde hair, blue eyes, is incredibly intelligent. He's enlisted by the Hitler Youth to go to this academy of elite science boys, and he gets deployed to the war 1 year early. He's only 17, and he is forced to kind of hunt down people spreading anti-propaganda messages about Germany. And his struggle and his loss and his grief is so impactful, and I cannot recommend this book enough. Please, 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 please go buy it or read it or do something with it. Just get your grubby little mitts onto it because it's so good. So good. So that wraps up my top and least top books of 2017. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, but until next time, which will probably be 2018, bye guys.